Thank you for your interest in the Retained Recruiter Show, powered by iIntro. Before the show starts, I have a small favour to ask of you. Our goal is to provide you with the most insightful, helpful and practical recruitment knowledge and know-how from the best in the recruitment industry. If you like this channel and enjoy watching our content, hit the subscribe button to get notified as soon as we upload a new episode. Thank you again, and as ever, we're rooting for your success. Now, time for the show. Hello and welcome to the Retained Recruiter Show. My name is James.
And my name is Jo. Thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. And look at us with another guest, James. Who have we got? Here.
Well, we've got the amazing Ali Braid, but not only that, Jo. She's got the not the badge. She's got the T-shirt. Look at that!
Hey! Thank you. Great to see you both. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, delighted to have you back. In reality, Ali. Let me just give a little introduction for people who don't know you. You're a high energy trainer, coach, and founder of the Recruitment Trainer. More about that later. A specialist training business that helps recruiters, managers, and business owners unlock performance and actually enjoy what they do. And Ali, I struggle to believe this. With over 23 years in the recruitment industry and 18 years designing and delivering training programs, you've delivered game-changing training for everyone from rookies to boardroom leaders. Ali is also a keynote speaker, a lifelong learner, and a firm believer that motivation plus enjoyment equals results. And her sessions aren't lectures, they're learning conversations designed to spark action, boost confidence, and drive success. Welcome back, Ali. Delighted to have you with us again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of that. I was just sat listening. Oh, is that me?
It's also when you hear, is that me? That's good, isn't it?
That's me. That's all right. That's all right.
She sounds good. We should hire her. She sounds great. Well, it's all very true. And obviously we've known each other for years, and this is not your first rodeo either, is it? So we have had you on the show before, although it feels like a very long time ago now.
It does. Yeah, a very long time ago. But you know, it's that whole timey-wimey thing, isn't it? I don't remember things in order now. Yeah. No. So who knows? Could have been last week, could have been 4 years ago. I don't know.
Maybe it's 23 years. They're all catching up with us now that we're all forgetting. How long ago did we do that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This is true. This is true. Absolutely true. And we have to say, before we start, we have to say a massive thank you to Leisha Holmes at Queen Recruitment, because she was on a couple of weeks ago and she had the shirt, and I'm hoping she has washed it. And then
yes, it did feel freshly laundered, so thank you.
Oh, she said she would. I'm sure she did.
Well, she did, and then she was like, "Oh, I might not actually." I was like, "No, I don't know how long the T-shirt's going to last if we're not washing it. It's going to be walking its way to the next guest all by itself at this rate."
Well, we've got a lot to cover today, haven't we, Jo? So what's the topics for today that we're going to cover off, and then we'll just go through one question by question. But what's the headlines of what we're looking at?
Yeah, so look, we've got loads to cover. We've got absolutely loads to cover. So for anybody who doesn't know Ali, A, where have you been? But B, recently she was one of the guest speakers at the Recruitment Expo. And so her topic was all around hiring for your organisation. So we're going to really we're going to drill down into that today. But we are broadening it out a little bit more. I mean, God forbid we've got 3 trainers in a room. What could possibly go wrong? Someone's going to get a flip chart out at some point. I think I'll start whiteboarding, maniacally whiteboarding at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've got 45 minutes, so we're going to try and get through businesses, recruitment businesses, and hiring. Why hiring strategies for recruitment businesses need to evolve, particularly in today's market. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about how high-performing teams are really built. So from inception all the way through to retaining them. How do we build high-performing teams? The growing importance of learning and development in retention. We're going to talk about spotting potential before everyone else does. We're going to talk about what top candidates actually value from employers in 2026, which I think is going to be a massive topic of conversation. And then we're going to talk about the hiring mistakes that hold businesses back. So if you are a recruitment business owner or anybody who's got hiring responsibilities within your organization, this is definitely going to be the show for you. And we do have the comments open, so I'll keep an eye on the comments as we go through. If anyone's got any questions or any comments, or simply wants to say hi, drop a comment in the chat, and we'll pick that up.
Brilliant. Well, we've got a lot to cover there. I will be amazed, Ali, if we get through all of that.
Yeah, so will I.
In this heat as well.
Yeah, exactly. But we can try, can't we?
I feel like I need to turn the heater on up here in the north. I feel cold.
No way.
Oh, really? That's your air conditioning.
Handheld.
I know. Trust me, I don't have air conditioning, but and I don't have hair conditioning either. So before
Yeah.
He's there all day, folks. He's there all day.
Let's jump in, Ali. The way that we're seeing the hiring market obviously feels a lot more complicated than, in some respects, than ever right now in terms of the way that people are doing it, all around. So let's just kick off and talk about, what we need to think about, and we can call them hiring strategies. Why things like that need to evolve in today's market. What are you seeing, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as Joe mentioned, I did for my Rec Expo talk. Actually, James, I did quite a lot of research on this, and I think luckily, we are moving away from that, and especially in our industry, hiring mini me's into the management team, and I'm sure I'm sure all remember those times, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where people would come out the interview room and you'd be like, oh, they're just like that director, or they're just like the MD, or and we were just hiring people that were already like the people that we have. And I think in the work I do, and I'm sure in the work you guys do as well, I think that one of the strategies, there's got to be this diversity, diversity in experience, diversity in thought. And there was a big McKinsey piece of research on this, and they found that you were more likely to outperform your peers, 36% more likely to outperform your peers, but also to hit those higher revenues, because you had that, that diversity of thinking and people coming at things from a different angle. So that's something that I would really like, I guess, us to champion as well, James, because we need that. If our industry is going to keep up with the demands that we're seeing and we have seen, I think having different people with different viewpoints and different ideas to the management structure, actually, I think is really key. And I don't know, I feel like people might get left behind, if you're not strategizing and hiring in that way, I would say.
Yeah.
But do you think we've got to start looking, because, like I say, rather than go for the mini-me's, actually thinking about, and we've said, sometimes people talk, I think I read an article yesterday about hiring for attitude rather than, because you can train all those other elements. And maybe one of the things, we spoke a little bit about this with Leisha last week, about bringing in, call them apprentices or, rookies, but actually shaping people, because our industry, it needs that diversity, as you mentioned, just to sort of try and bring it back and actually sort of, try and create something. So I think maybe we need to have a look at that in a lot of detail as well.
Yeah. I think what you said before is really key. I think a lot of recruitment businesses do hire in their own image, thinking that that's the right thing to do. Well, I'm all right, so therefore I'll hire in my image. But what you're doing is you're amplifying your strengths, but equally you're amplifying your weaknesses.
The weaknesses, yes.
Yeah, and it's a very subjective way of hiring for a business. And I'd challenge any recruitment business owner listening now to look at their internal hiring process and think, is it timely, and is it objective? And I would imagine that the answer to those two things is probably going to be no. I mean, we talk a lot about objectivity in hiring anyway, don't we, James? With our intro, because one of the big things, I know you're a big disc lover, Ali. We fly the flag from McQuaid. But it really is used for psychometric or a behavioral assessment. It's about making sure, exactly. It's about making sure that, exactly like you said, it's attitude over aptitude. This job can be trained, but if you don't have the right attitude and the right minimals and the right willingness and motivation, you're never going to be able to get out of people what you need out of them, I don't think.
Yeah. And I think you're right, as you said there about and you, James, shouldn't we be looking for people that are trainable, as opposed to people that come in and are really shiny and charismatic, and therefore maybe more impressive, she says with quotation marks, but actually, they're not willing to do the hard stuff. They're not willing to be wrong. They are not comfortable in being uncomfortable. And I think that's the other thing. If you think about how many people leave our industry because they you know, through no fault of their own, but they can't sit, you know, in those places of feeling uncomfortable and not knowing, which we know is all part of it, right? You know, you have to get comfortable with that. But if you're expecting people like off the shelf to sort of come into your business like that, I think we're going to set ourselves up for failure, really, aren't we?
Well, I think we have been in reality, because I think there's I think there's been a lack of general training in the industry, in terms of and I think it's worsened since COVID because of things we spoke about on other calls, where people are no longer going into the offices as frequently, therefore they're not getting that training by osmosis, never mind actual formal training. So I think those are all challenges that we're all facing out there at this moment in time. And I think if identifying those things, and it's interesting, whether you're a disc preference or, let's say we use McQuaig, I think the point there is when to use it in the process in terms of, and too many people use it towards the, they use it for the validation of the hire rather than the creation of the hire, in terms of think about what do I want from those people to assess, will they do what I want them to do? And how can I assess and evaluate during my interview, my first interview and second interview, not my final interview? Oh, I've just done a disc profile and they fit. Woohoo! Actually looking at some of the traits that are required for those individuals. And these are all tools which now are readily available, not hugely expensive, or they're relatively inexpensive from that side of it. But people just leave them too late, and therefore and again I say this from a self-reflection and self-criticism. When I used to use and it was Thomas, and this isn't, which I think is great way. But I was really using it just right at the end, just say, oh yeah, they are that type of person. Good,
to validate.
You'd ignore all the signals that said, oh, that's not good because they won't do that. Oh, it doesn't matter. They'll be all right because they look like me or they sound like me or whatever. So I think there's a lot more that we can do in terms of hiring to actually sort of help, whether we're helping the recruitment teams grow and build, which is what today's about, or actually helping your clients as well. But today we're focusing on teams. So let's soldier on, shall we? Otherwise we'll find it's quarter two.
So let's talk about how we we'll start at the beginning of the process, I suppose. Let's talk about what we should be doing when we're selecting people for our teams. So what's your advice that you would give to recruitment business owners, directors, hiring managers who are looking to hire for their teams? What's the sort of tips that you'd give them right now?
So when I was thinking about this, and actually, if you're going to do psychometrics, do it with the team. And actually, this was something we did when I was director, and we were building out. We were a small to medium business, but actually, we all did DISC. To sort of just what's the lie of the land, what have we got already, which then fed into so actually what are we missing. And I was thinking this morning, how there's always, we talk a lot about CRMs and databases, don't we? A lot. What do we need, what's right for us, what works for you, but actually not necessarily thinking about, well, what does the business need? Starting with that as opposed to what the CRM can do. So I think, when you're interviewing, it has to worth, you have to start with that, what do we need? So what, as you said, Jo, what are we missing? Have we got a team where actually everyone's quite similar? So the strengths and weaknesses are quite similar. What are the gaps? So I would start with that, because I think usually you do find that, we are missing some of those traits that would just help us move along and get to where we need to be. And then another thing I was just going to suggest, Jo, was really looking at your actual interview process, because I think, like a lot of things, this can become, this is what we've always done and these are the questions we've always asked, but again, is it drawing out the stuff that we need to know and that we want to know? Or are we just, we've gone into ChatGPT, we've asked for some questions. They'll do. That's just, you've got to give it the attention, haven't you? It deserves. If you want to grow your team, I think you have to get really quite scientific on your process, what you're trying to find out, how you're trying to find it out, and then create create that interview culture almost where you're seeing the real person, which is a skill, isn't it? Do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I sorry, just jumping there, because it's just you raised something which really helps, and it's something that we've got some comments from a guy called Ian O'Callaghan. Appreciate those, Ian. They're really good in terms about the person. One of the things that you say there, Joe, and I think the problem is in most interviewing, and I think recruiters are as guilty as this as clients, is that we spend too long interviewing the CV rather than interviewing the person and finding out about the person. And so when you mention that scientific element, that's where, the tools are available. And I don't want to make this a tool about DISC or any psychometrics outside, but there are just tools available there to help you get more to understand more about what the person will do, because that's what you want from them. The other things, as I've said, are trainable, coachable, and sortable. But we spend too long just trying to say, oh, what did you do it here? And, and it's just trying to, oh, yeah, okay, well, they perform well over there, so they should perform well for us type scenario.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to look beyond that. And I think what you're advocating there is obviously going deeper into understanding the person more, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
We do need to up our game and not just rely on ChatGPT questions, although, some of them.
They can. Yeah, they could be right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that Ian was saying in his comment there was that he said you can teach anyone to do a good job, but you can't teach everyone to be a good person, which is very true. And I know one of the things you advocate as well, Ali, is sort of bringing people in at grassroots level. So looking for rookies, looking for people who have no experience. In which case they don't really. Even if they do have a CV, it's about looking for cross-transferable skills and potential rather than past performance, which I think is where, as businesses, maybe we're not focusing on bringing rookies in as much as we should do, because almost maybe we don't know what we're looking for. We don't know how to look for it. I remember ages ago, you've worked with them as well, and it was a business we were working with, and they were putting a rookie academy together, and we were helping to put a full assessment process together, layers of assessment, which was objective, which was great because it's going to increase your chances of taking the right people on. But it was based purely on potential to perform rather than past performance, because they didn't really have any. And this business used to look at very kind of surface level stuff. So biographical interviewing and the 2 P's, personality and presentation. So they look good and they sound good. They're affable, they look like me or like somebody else who I know is also good at recruitment, or they look like someone who I like and therefore I like them. So using subjective methods, they were very used to doing that. So it was really difficult for them to put these assessment processes in place. It was almost as if they were like saying, we're recruitment businesses, we don't need to use this stuff. But the irony is that I think recruitment businesses are probably the worst at recruiting for their own teams. And it was really interesting because myself and the director were in the lift, and the guy was coming for an interview, and he came in the lift with us. And when we got out the lift, I turned to the director and I went, "Oh, he's going to be good." And he didn't get past assessment method 2. He didn't make it to the rest of the afternoon. And even I was like, look, I've been doing this for years. And even I looked at him and thought, oh yeah, you look good. You'll be able to do recruitment. So I think we really need to be careful, don't we? Like you said, yes, we want to look for personality. We want to look for traits that give us idea of their behavior and their personality, but equally we need to make sure we're doing it objectively.
Yeah. And I think as well, we know it's been a tough market, don't we? I mean, and actually Leisha and I talked about this. I've not done a full academy for quite some time now.
No,
which which says it all, doesn't it? It says it all. And I think one of the fears I think many of us have is we don't have this kind of next generation coming through, and I think in a business as well, if your top billers leave because they want to set up on their own, right, which is fair enough, which we know happens relatively often, what's left? You don't have that longevity, but I think people are so nervous about making a mistake, which puts people off, but again, that comes from your onboarding, doesn't it, and your induction, and what you're getting them to do and how quickly you get them to do it. And I think there's ways around all of those things, and I think in a year's time we might be in quite a difficult place, actually.
Yeah, I think we will do if we don't start recruiting. Which I suppose also kind of begs the question. I'm the same. I think, you know, massive programs full of rookies is possibly a thing of the past. Now, I don't know if that's because we're not being able to find them. I don't know if that's because we're scared of knowing how to assess them properly, or if it's actually the whole model in recruitment is slightly changing. So it's moving away from how many people have you got. It's not headcount focused anymore. It's performance focused. And we had this conversation with Lisa, and I'd like your opinion on it as well. To recruit or not to recruit? You know, are businesses still running hell to leather to recruit in order to increase headcount, or are we a bit smarter? Are we now thinking actually it's not about me having 25 people doing 10 grand a month? It's about me having 10 people doing 25 grand a month each.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think the days of, as you said, you know, get 15 people in at a time or 10 people in at a time, and sort of train them all together. I don't think we're there anymore. Maybe we never will be. I don't know. But then to have nothing, it's like we've gone the other way. So we just, you know, we're not training anybody new.
Well, I don't think it's in a train. I think one of that's a really good point you make about the 25 and 10 and 10 and 25 type scenario. And I think that's where the challenges in the job market are such that, you know, call it AI, call it, commoditization of transactional, that side is actually sort of making it more difficult for people to sort of find to have those roles. Those roles are no longer available. So the 25 people doing it, there's no roles to be done that because they're gone, I think, in some respect. So I think from that point of view, trying to bring that across is difficult. And then you've got the employers, the people we're talking about here today, the recruiters who bring them on board. They don't think, well, they're never going to make any money, so why am I going to bring on? So it's sort of a double-edged sword. It's interesting. I had somebody connect with me a couple of weeks ago, and he's actually he's actually my wife's boss's son. So he's about 22 or 23, something like that. He's done university and whatever, and he's gone into recruitment. He's been doing it, 6-12 months now. He's been promoted, as he always, but at least they're bringing somebody in new, which is what I thought was quite good. But is he being trained? So in terms of coming through from that side of things to go through. But anyway, that brings me on to the question really about the importance, and maybe we just answered, I don't know, but the importance or the growing importance of learning development and to help to aid retention, because if you can't hold on to those people, if you can't give them something, then they are going to go. And I made a little comment when you said something where if your high performers leave, and I said, well, when? The reality is they don't all leave if people do stay in good organizations. So what can we do to foster that environment, would you say?
Yeah, I think, and actually, Joe, I always remember you introduced me to this when we had our second training business in lockdown, and you introduced me to that, the Hertzberg motivation theory, which I know is really old now, but I think there's a lot still in it, and I think that people's need it's people's need for growth, isn't it? And whatever growth looks like for them. So I think as long as an employer, if you're an employer in any industry, having those or providing those opportunities, I think is just as important as people taking them. They might not always want them, but they want to know that they're there should they have them. And I'm finding it really interesting actually now. If you go on websites of recruitment businesses, and it used to be a whole section on training and development, and now it's just sort of this little box that says we have our own internal training program. And I think I wonder what that actually is, because the likelihood it's maybe the director does a lunch and learn every couple of months or something, but that's not going to cut it. So yeah, I think it's an important one, but also don't you both think as well, it's just ask people, ask people what they want and they'll tell you. I think you don't, as an employer now, you don't have to sort of just sort of, right, well, here's everything. Well, actually, let's just ask, let's find out, what do they need? And again, for your top billers, your high billers, your high performing people, we forget them a lot, don't we? When actually they would love some development time. They'd love to see you guys. They'd love to see me. They'd love, to feel like there was that progression still happening for them. So yeah, I think let's just ask. What do you want?
I agree. Yeah. I think we should. I think we need to have high performance pathways in place within an organization.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
We say this all the time, but retention starts with recruitment. If you recruit the right people into your business, into the right positions, then you're going to get longevity, because it's going to aid retention. If you're recruiting the wrong people, it doesn't matter how many perks you throw at them, they're never going to stay, because they're not being fulfilled. They don't feel like they're adding value, or they are of value, so it's about impact. What impact are they making to the business? What impact are you making to them? So I agree. I think you need to get your recruitment process sorted. You need to have an induction process, because there's far too many people leaving our industry due to a lack of proper induction and orientation. So we need to get that sorted. And then there needs to be a proper, robust training program. We can't expect people to come into this job and instinctively know what to do, particularly if we're asking them to do things that generationally are not in their wheelhouse. So asking a younger generation of person to make 500 phone calls a day, but we're not teaching them how to use the phone. In our day, we were on the phone because there wasn't anything else to do. We were using the phones where the numbers still went round, and there's 80% of people on this. I'm not going to know what I'm talking about, but the numbers literally went round, and you had to wait for the number to come back round. We were using stuff like that. But nowadays, there's just so many more models available to people, and I think that the role of a recruiter is changing. We're now social media and marketing and finance and a therapist and a sourcer and all that other stuff. That are we actually training people? Because if we're not training them and they leave, then that's on us. Whereas if we train them and then they leave, then maybe we're not recruiting the right people in the first place. But we need to give people a fighting chance, and we need to put all the resources and the tools in place to enable them to do that. And Ian's actually said there about process optimization as well, I think, which is really key. Making sure that you've got all the tools and the resources and the platform and the opportunities available for people, so that when they come into your organization, that high performance pathway is already in place. And I do think that L&D plays a massive part in that. But again, it's not like recruitment. I'm just going to chat GPT a recruitment process. You can't just, shove a load of training videos onto somebody. It's got to be lined up, hasn't it, Ali? It's got to be lined up with where do you need them to get to it as a business, and how long have we got to get them there? And then where do they want to get to? And how are we going to get them there? And having consistent development and career pathways in place for them.
Yeah. And that's where that build comes from, isn't it, Joe? And again, I remember when you and I used to sit on calls, with businesses, and they'd be like, well, we want this, and it was sort of a bit of a shopping list, and it was usually you, Joe, that would go, okay, that's fine, but why do you want that? What do you want them to be able to do? Because actually the gap between where they are now and what you want them to be able to do might, this course in the middle might not be quite right. And I think that's the other thing, isn't it? It's creating those pathways that are sort of less off the shelf. And I feel like I'm asked a lot more now for, it's bespoke, it's for us, it's really overcoming, the challenges that business has, as opposed to, well, we'll do a bit of a pick and mix of learning, which might tick some boxes, but it's not going to be as robust a solution, potentially. And I'm just going back into Ian's comment here.
Well, I think whilst you're doing that, I think one of the things that Ian touched on as well is the standards that we relate it to, and I think this comes down to the quality of the training that we give, or that isn't given by organisations because they're not engaging people like you to help them do this. But the standards that are out there, we've said this for years. It's been a bit of the Wild West, and obviously, our focus at iIntro is to move more towards the consultative element side of things. So it's always about offering the right type of service, focus on the business outcomes. And at this point that Ian's got up on the screen, I think it's something that I've thought about for years. Wouldn't it be great if recruitment was a professional service where it was? Unfortunately, in the UK and in most Western countries now, we're not going to go back to licensing, because we sort of did have that, but then it all disappeared because it wasn't really run properly. But I get the concept of what this is. It's saying if there was some standard that candidates, clients, Recruiters, you know, because we're talking about building teams today, recruiters could know that I'm going to come in, I'm going to be trained to a standard. Yeah, I go back to, you know, the blue chip training, you know, if you're in sales, or if you know, I'm talking about the UK now, or if you get a job with Mars, well, you're going to get the best training ever. So you're going to be set for life, and you often were. Because you had that grounding that was there, and it's about trying to bring that back in. And so when we're talking about the L&D questions, about saying, you know, there aren't really, I know we've got the REC, but, you know, there aren't any really, you know, industry-wide standards that say this is where you get. So that's really difficult for, if I'm looking to go to work for as a new recruiter going to work to a company, even if I'm, you know, 40, 50, 60 years old, you know, what am I going to get from them? You know, you don't know anymore in terms of, you know, the EVP that is there. What's attracting me to go and work in recruitment right now? Anything?
Yeah. I think it is a bit difficult, and I think it's sort of like you said, Joe, as well. It is equipping the modern recruiter, isn't it? In all those streams. And again, I think that's and it's a big ask, right? Isn't it? Because, you know, they're marketeers, they've got to be social media gurus, you know, they've got to be all these different things. But actually businesses are doing it, and it is doable. But I think it's putting the time in, isn't it? It's sort of putting that time and energy into all of those things, which, you know, aside from making the money, perhaps, you know, people would just feel like they can't prioritize it, and it's sort of kicking the can, isn't it? It's kicking it down the road all the time.
And I do think that you know, the industry, I don't know, I think just to come back to one of the things that you said earlier on, and Ian mentioned it before, actually, about when he talked about processes and smartening your processes up. I do sometimes wonder if recruitment businesses are recruiting, but are they getting the maximum out of the people that they've already got in their business first? And that's something that we could probably look at first. You know, if we're building high performance teams, that's not just about let's bring more people in. It's about let's look at the productivity and performance of who we've already got in the business, and then let's look at how we can improve that before we then start looking at let's bring more people in. Because what you're doing is you're bringing more people in to an organization that's not operationally as effective as it could be, and that isn't performing at the highest level that it could be either, you know. So looking at that first, and then I think having that strategy about where do you want to grow strategically, how are we growing as an organization, that's going to help you to map out where you should be taking people on. And also I wanted to get your opinion on this as well, you know, based on what you're seeing, Ali, is what model are we taking them on under? So are we still trying to bring in all these 360s, or is there, you know, how do you feel about 360 versus 180? I think there's almost like a 270 model now, which is where, you know, you've got people doing all the outbound, the proactive outbound revenue generating, but we use AI, we use tech, we use TAs or whatever we've got to trim the fat off consultants, so they're not having to do all of that admin based stuff that I think clogs us up a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And actually, if I think about sort of current clients, actually, there's a bit of everything in there. There's the 360, there's the 270, you know, maybe they've got, you know, some AI programs that are always running in the background for sourcing and you know, kind of doing that outreach. I've got clients that do still have resources. So yeah, I don't know. Are we sort of going more one way or another? I'm not sure. I don't know as well if industry has, you know, if the niche that you're in as well, I do think can dictate where you sit on that, can't it? So if you've got, you know, literally hundreds of candidates to speak to every week, then yes, you know, you're going to need a person that just speaks to hundreds of candidates. So yeah, certainly in my experience, I'm not sort of seeing one or the other necessarily, but I don't know, is it like a fashion, you know, are we, you know, Devil Wears Prada 1 year, you know, it's 360, and then the next year it's, you know, doing that sort of 270. I don't know.
I think that I mean, I think that comes down to some respect the size of the organisations. You know, if you're small boutique, you're always going to be 360 pretty much. You'll bring it, maybe 270 is a better phrase for it now, because you will be bringing in AI resources to help you, for efficiency reasons. So you'll eliminate some of the mundane tasks and pass those out, but you'll still do all the human tasks and that sort of thing. So interesting things that are going on from there. So I think we've got another comment. We've got another couple of comments from me. Ian, your comments are fantastic, by the way. Thank you very much for those.
Yeah, we're going to get We're going to get in on the show. Contact us.
We've got some great opinions.
And Ali's got a great T-shirt for you, Ian. So
we'll
send it over.
I promise I'll wash it for you. Yeah. It's quite warm in here.
Well, I think it might be in the US, so that's going to be airmail. We'll just buy a new one and send it over there. Anyway, let's move on. We're in the last sort of 10 minutes. So let's look, in terms of. Let's just talk about some of the mistakes that we probably touched on some of them, but let's sort of clarify them so that they're crystal clear for people, because obviously we're trying to give some advice here. But what are the high mistakes that are holding businesses back, in your opinion, Ali? By the way, Ali, before we say that, if people want to get in touch with you, they can connect with you on LinkedIn, of course, can't they? I think we've got that flash note. Yeah, so that's your website, but so that's there. But also, I think you're getting a new website that's coming soon. So.
Yes. So I know. Sorry, James, my website.
Why are you getting a new website, Ali?
Under pressure. So it's my 10-year business anniversary this September. Thanks for asking. So I basically, when you look at something, James, and you think this is starting to look its age a bit, maybe a bit like me. So it's having a refresh. It'll still link to the online and the sort of learner-led modules. I've got a nucleus, but so that will be coming, and there'll be a big.
Make sure you're going to have a look at that, everybody, because obviously that's worth seeing. But anyway, let's back to the question. And so, what do you feel that the high mistakes that are holding people back?
So we've mentioned a few, haven't we? Just that hiring mini-me's, not developing and not creating your strategy from who do we need, what do we need, what have we already got. Perfection doesn't exist. And I find myself still having to have these conversations, just like we've said, if people are trainable, if they're willing to make mistakes, let's face it, we need people that are willing to look a bit silly, almost on the daily. So, how you're drawing that out, in an interview process, not just going for the shiny, they look great and they're really charismatic and they're really confident. Hiring for diversity. And I think as well, it's that I think we have always needed people that are hungry for more. And yes, of course, billings is great. And of course we want that, but just, never settling. I think, I'm sure we've worked with those people that are high performing, and they work themselves to very high standards. And I sometimes feel at the minute that we're not always, again, we're sort of going with the mini-me's and that they're charismatic in this, but actually, what's their work ethic, to get up in the morning in a difficult market and try again. Do they have that resilience? And I think, James, we're maybe not being as rigorous around those kinds of behaviors. As you said, we're going through a CV, but what we're not doing is drawing out, maybe examples and talking to people about when they have maybe behaved in that way, because that's what we need. And
Joe, any of your thoughts to add on to those, Joe? I think that's high.
I agree. No, I agree. I think that hiring too fast is something that we do. We tend to hire in a very knee-jerk way, and we have this idea that somebody is better than nobody, and I couldn't agree less with that. If I tried. I think nobody is better than the wrong person. It's better to have an empty seat than a seat that's costing you, $5-6 grand a month and you're not getting any return on it. I also think that you need to make sure that you're calculating how long it's going to take for you to get return on investment from people. So Alison was saying before, she doesn't take on rookies anymore because of the time it can take them to get up to speed. I agree with that, but I also agree with Ian's comment that if you have a robust recruitment, onboarding, induction, and training and development program, they'll be billing within 3 months. They will be billing within 3 months from a standing start, but there have to be things that you're putting in place for them. You can't just sit green on a desk that's not been done and go, right, make some money, because no one's got a clue what they're doing at that point. So I think you have to make sure you're bringing the right people into the right markets, the right desks. You've got a blend of training and development ready for them when they come in. And that is a blend. You know, it's desk side coaching, it's proper training, it's processes and procedures, it's having all of your SOPs in place so people know exactly what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. And that's a business's responsibility to put that into place. Otherwise, you're going to create this culture leakage where you've got all different people in your business doing all different things differently. And that's what tends to happen when you bring experienced recruiters in. An experienced recruiter, when they come in, needs a proper skills gap analysis. They need a proper training needs analysis. You need to find out what they're really good at, where they're aligned to your organization, where maybe they do things a slightly different way. You've got to realign them. But also then where do they need to get to next, and having that process in place. And we can't ignore people who are experienced. We definitely can't ignore people who are performing, which is what we tend to do. So 80% of our time, as you know, Ali, tends to get spent on the 20% of people who are underperforming. And actually it should be the other way around. That takes time, it takes planning, it takes having proper structures in place, proper meetings with everybody, proper measurements, so you know what good looks like, and you also know what failure looks like. And having all those things, and a lot of people don't have those things in place. And I don't know about you, Ali, but I tend to spend the vast majority of my time going into business and building these infrastructures now. Yes, I'll go in and I'll do some training, but actually it's about, let me come in and let me build an infrastructure within your organization so you're capable of recruiting 10 to 15 people and all of them reaching maximum performance. All of our clients at iIntro work with a 96% retention rate in the first 12 months. Again, I don't think that's beyond us as recruitment businesses. We just need to be getting it right.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's that whole piece, isn't it? When you start to dig into it and create something like you said there, Joe, then you sort of like, well, hang on a minute, what about these people over here, because they've just been left alone? And what about you're saying that this group here aren't performing, but do they really know what's expected? So it's almost a complete sort of strategy overhaul, I think, ultimately, is what we're all doing, isn't it, in coaching and development?
I mean, I think there's been a chronic underinvestment in coaching and training, and I think too much of it has gone to the easy way out. And listen, we're all responsible for this as well, by the way, because online, I think most of us would agree, and this isn't me being old-fashioned here, that and you both of you spoke about when you go into organizations, that just not enough of that's happening nowadays. I think to actually sort of have that third-party interference, which there's rather than the same voice, because if you have the same voice all the time, it's why you think your website's out of date. It's not out of date, because if I've never looked at it before, it's fine, by the way. But anyway, I get what you're saying about that. But bringing in that interference, it can actually sort of aid organizations to move on and give them that independent review of, okay, this is what's happening in the market. And that's what you guys do when you go into organizations. So I think organizations, even if you've got experienced staff, it's the question is how can we help improve them? How can we help motivate them and keep them back? Well, train and coach and support them. I think I think it'd be fair to say that we've seen over the last couple of years, particularly, I think there's been more and more underinvestment, because I think people are short stepping and saying, oh, we can get it on YouTube, or we can just Google the answer for this, that, and the other, rather than actually investing in coaching and support. And I mean, and I don't just mean whether it can be literally in terms of impersonal, it can even be this way, but there are those elements I think people need to think about in terms of how we build it up. We're gonna need to sort of wrap up now, so let's have some.
I make a really important point as well, because this is really important. Everything you've just said there, I think, absolutely accurate. Everything you've just said is bang on. I also think we then need to take everything that you've just said and look out as recruiters into the industry, because end user employers are doing that exact thing. They're sidestepping, they're shortcutting, they're working with agencies in a transactional way. And actually, as a recruitment business, we should be going to our employers, our clients, and saying, let us help you, because they don't know how to recruit, train, onboard, induct and retain people either. They're building a business. They're not recruiters, they're not trainers. So everything that we're saying we should be doing, you know, as trainers we do for the recruitment industry should be doing for their respective industries as well, and act, you know, true consultancy out there into their industry sectors, because it's not just about sending CVs to people and hoping for the best, is it? It's about help us to help you grow as an organization through recruitment and retention of top staff and everything that goes with it. And when you get someone into your business as a recruitment business to help you with your own, the beauty of that is you then learn how to take that, box it and sell it to your clients, which is a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Another 40 minutes right there.
Well, Ali, listen, you know, I say, unsurprisingly, we've run out of time, and we'll probably cover everything off. But listen, there've been some amazing insights that you shared with people, and I think the responses and interaction we've had with Ian and Alison have been fantastic. And I'm not connected with you two guys, I will be, so please do accept it, because I've enjoyed your comments that you come through that. But Ali, thank you so much for your thoughts and insights. Joe, great additions to it as well, because I think, you know, you come from a very similar sort of wavelength on that side of things. So I think good, it really empowered that particular conversation and sort of rammed it all home. So thank you very much, Ali.
Thank you. No, thank you both. And yeah, thank you, Ian, and thank you, Ali, and thank you for the name check, my other Ali.
Oh yeah, a lot of you are thanking yourself then in third person.
I know. Yeah, no, Alison.
Joe.
We'll be back again in a couple of weeks with another guest, so look out for that one. But we appreciate everybody listening in, watching back, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. So it's goodbye from me,
and it's goodbye from me, and
from me. Thank you both.
Bye everybody.
Bye.